Welcome to Is Your Way in Your Way podcast, where your host, Cassandra Crawley Mayo, helps you break free from obstacles and live life on your terms. Get ready to embark on a journey of self-discovery, empowerment, and inspiration. Tune in as we dive into captivating conversations with experts and explore topics that will ignite your passion and drive. Are you ready to unlock your full potential? Let's dive in.
Good day out there to all of my listeners, and I'd like to welcome you to Is Your Way in Your Way podcast. And I'm your host. My name is Cassandra Crawley Mayo. And for those new listeners out there, I'd like to share with you what this podcast is all about. It's for those individuals who are stuck. You know within your heart of hearts that there's something that you know you should be doing, but you can't seem to get out of your way in doing so. So let me give you some examples. Perhaps somebody wants to be an author. They want to write a book. Maybe they are in a toxic relationship and they need to get out. Or, you know what, I've been in this job for quite some time and I know it's time for me to leave, but I just can't do it. And just try to think of the things why you're not able to do that. And that's why I like to bring on guests that we talk about topics related to what I call personal improvement, personal growth. Some of it's business improvement, business growth. And I always pray that there will be a podcast of mine that you will listen to where you will have an epiphany and you will know right then and there, okay, this is what I need. Now I know I'm stuck. Now I'm unstuck and I'm ready to start living my best life on my terms. So today we have a guest by the name of Arlene Cohen Miller. And let me introduce Arlene and I'll tell you what our topic is. Well, hello, Arlene. How are you today?
I'm great. Lovely to be here.
Thank you. I'm glad you're here. Our topic today is empower your inner voice from critic to coach. Now, we know we all have an inner voice. I've read and done some research. Sometimes they say we have 7,000 thoughts a day. I've read something where they say we had 20,000. So whatever, we have a lot of thoughts a day. And they also say 80% of those thoughts are negative. So this will be very, I think, very interesting conversation to talk about in regards to being a critic, from critic to coach. And before we get started, and I'll delve into the questions for Arlene, I want to share a little bit about her history so that you have a little background on her so you will understand a bit, well, perhaps why she's qualified to talk about this topic. Arlene Miller is the CEO of Jewel Consultancy, is a work-life balance and harmony coach who brings a wealth of training and experience to help women compassionately and wholeheartedly lead themselves and create the life they desire, a life that works and feels right to them. She is a professional certified coach with the International Coaching Federation, and she is also an AV-rated Colorado attorney and a certified meditation facilitator with a diploma in transformational holistic counseling from Australia. And what I'd like to ask, and I intended to ask you before, in the beginning of our conversation, before we came on, what is an AV-rated Colorado attorney?
It's the highest rating that you can get. So I've worked hard for it and I kept it. And I'm still licensed to practice in Colorado because it does contribute to, what I can do for people. And yeah, that's what it is.
So what type of attorney, what did you practice?
I practiced two kinds of law. The first 12 years, well, when I first started off, I was working for other attorneys, and the first attorney, solo practitioner I worked for, did family law, domestic relations, and also helped businesses to collect their debts. And so I ended up doing both of those things. When I went out on my own when I was 29, I primarily focused on family law, and so I was doing divorce and dissolutions of marriage and child custody. And I was also appointed by the court to be a guardian ad litem. That means I represented the children in divorces where the parents were not very functional. That one or both were involved in alcohol or drugs, or parenting skills that were not up to what the court felt was in the best interest of the child.
Wow.
And
Okay.
I was really young when I started all of that. I was 29 when I
Okay.
started out on my own. And I grew up in the suburbs of Louisville, Kentucky, in a pretty stable, loving family environment. And I had never been exposed to that. And you do get some training in law school, but a lot of the training in the law is on the ground. And I ended up switching to commercial law after 12 years. I just didn't have the skills and abilities I do now to take care of myself in that kind of environment. And so
Okay.
for the rest of the time, I help businesses collect their debts, which is a
Okay.
little bit stressful, but you
Yeah.
know, it's not the same as people in those kind of deals.
Right, that's very different, right? Yeah, I read somewhere that one of your goals or aspirations, I don't know if you were 12 years old but you were young and you knew that you wanted to be an attorney. What inspired you to want to do that? What was
I
that?
get asked that question a lot. I was 15, and it's just like I felt like I had this downloading of knowing that you need to be an attorney. And I'm like, okay, that sounds pretty cool because
Uh-huh.
I knew that I would be able to take care of myself. And I thought, well, I can really be of service to people, in a profound way if I am in the practice of law. And
Okay.
so I just decided and I told my mom and dad. I don't know if they believed me at 15, but I did share that with them and I followed through.
Wow, that's very impressive. Because a lot of us at that age, we're not quite sure what it is that we want to do. Like people say, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" And I always remember that question. I'm like, I don't know. But wow, you were special. You kind of knew what it was that you wanted to do.
I don't know if I was special. I just sort of, got this really strong feeling and I just followed it.
Awesome, awesome. We call that intuition, right? Yeah.
Yes,
Let
ma'am.
me ask you. Now you pivoted. You were an attorney, and obviously, congratulations for your AV rated status. And there was something that said, you know what? I want to do a different type of work. I think I want to be a work life balance and human coach or something, do harmony coach. What what inspired you to change something that you've always wanted? You even changed not the practices, so to speak, the things that you were working on. But why? What prompted the change to, even though you're still an attorney, but you're not practicing, right?
Right.
Right. So what was it that led you to want that to change?
People ask me that, but it wasn't like a big aha moment like my decision to practice law. It happened over time.
Okay.
One of the things in my background is I started my own solo practitioner practice when I was 29 in
Hmm.
a western suburb of Cleveland, Ohio called Lakewood. There was two other. It was a storefront office. There was two other attorneys. There was an employment agency. Another guy came in later who did collections, which was really interesting. He sold collection packages to businesses, and I began partnering with him.
Hmm.
But I put out my shingle. It was very different then. We didn't have all the computer stuff we have now at all, and I immediately found out I was pregnant. So
Hmm.
I graduated, and my then husband and I were both from Louisville, Kentucky. So all of our family was there, and we were 6-hour drive away.
Okay.
And all my peers from law school were in Kentucky or right across the Ohio River in Indiana or Ohio practicing. So I didn't have them there. I really didn't have my tribe around me. And there
Hmm.
weren't any kind of coaches like what I do now. There were counselors, there were psychologists, and I did end up delving into that a little bit, but they really didn't have the skills and tools to help me form a tribe and do what I needed. I really sort of needed a coach. And so it was an interesting journey. It wasn't easy to be a mom with a beginning business and a partner that was working 70 hours a week and wasn't was there financially for me, but wasn't there in person really
Hmm.
very much of the time. And so I really had like a really strong empathetic and compassionate connection with women from that. And that's one of the bases of how I got to where I am right now.
What? Okay. Why work life balance? I mean, because you're doing transformational healing, um, mentoring. why did you select work-life balance? And and that term, to me, I heard it a lot, and I used to always say it when I was at corporate. I'm like, I need a work-life balance. Well, first of all, what is work-life balance?
Well, I add the word harmony there for a reason
Okay,
because balance sort of feels like scales of justice to me. And
right.
that's sort of impossible. That implies we need to find a perfect something, and then we place all these expectations on ourselves that aren't going to be helpful. But when you add harmony into it, you bring in that flexibility and adaptability that we need in life, full stop, because things are
Mhm.
always kind of moving and changing and shifting in our lives, so that we have to be flexible and adaptable with what happens. And I really feel that the transformational mentoring and the meditation and the work-life balance and harmony, they're kind of the reason my company's called Jewel Consultancy is that it feels like they're all different sides of the diamond,
Mhm.
and so they're not different. They're just different ways of approaching problems or issues that we have to have a resolution. And some ways are going to work for some people, and some ways are going to work for others. But they're all really a part of the same sort of gem.
Okay. Let's talk about how the inner voice plays into that. When we talk about the from the critic to the coach, that's a shift. But let's talk about the inner voice a bit. Talk, the inner voice? Now, remember, I had said some people say it's 2,000 thoughts a day, 22,000 thoughts a day. Why is that so important?
Ready to design your dream life? Join Cassandra Crawley Mayo's Create and Design Your Best Life workshop. Break free from self-doubt and obstacles and step into a life of purpose and fulfillment. Click the link in the description to register now. Don't wait. Spaces are limited. Start living your best life today.
Well, I don't know how many thoughts a day we have, but it really does help with like the meditation and coming
Hmm.
back to our inner source knowing, and not
Hmm.
trying to find answers on the outside, and being really
Hmm.
grounded and fully present in our body in this now moment. So we're not worrying about the future, or overwhelmed about the future, or feeling bad, or even just reminiscing about the past, but we're right here.
Hmm.
Um, it's just a fact of life that most people have all those thoughts. I think if you meditate, if you find ways to get it out in nature, you can slow that down considerably. But where it feels like it's genetically passed on from generation to generation to have all these kind of negative thoughts. If I look
Hmm.
at my mom, if I look at my grandmother, about, not that they were negative people, but how they sort of talked to themselves and shared things with me. And they were great parents and great people, but it just felt like that to me. And so it just really feels like it's a learned behavior, for maybe the way we have our parents, or the way we go to school, the way our teachers interact with us. All kinds of things come up where we hear this stuff, where we take it on, and we make it something negative about ourselves, or something negative to focus on. So basically, it's not that it's wrong, but maybe the way that we've talked to ourselves is the way that we survived as a child, or maybe that we moved forward as a child, is not something to judge ourselves about, but it's not really working, because what we focus on is what we get more of. So it's really
Hmm.
important to focus on what we want to move towards, what we want to create in our lives, while at the
Hmm.
same time not ignoring our feelings. Because if we really feel our feelings and just let them move through us and not get stuck in them and keep on focusing on them, but focus on what we're aligned to, or choosing to move towards, we're going to have a different experience.
What about like my listeners, some of my listeners, for example, they do want to switch jobs, they want to do something different. And internally they are struggling with some limiting beliefs, like I can't do that, or I I don't know if I have the capacity. Well, I still have children, young children, and I want to make sure that I'm my, actually they're my priority. So I don't want to shift the family by me making a move. Or how do you work with people that are well, in other words, how do discuss shifting that inner? critic.
Yeah, well,
Who's
I
that
think one of
critic?
the easiest to begin to turn around that inner critic into an inner coach, especially for women, we are very empathetic.
Mm-hmm.
We really are the nurturers. So if our friend came to us and started telling us everything that we were thinking and all those negative thoughts, and we didn't know what we wanted to do, we would be there for our friend. We would be there for the person that we loved. We would share, we would support them, we would nurture them, we would be there for them, we would champion them. Um, we just would. And
Yeah.
the thing is, so we already have those skills and abilities, but what we forget is that we can just turn around and give those same things to ourselves. And at first that
Mm-hmm.
might feel like, oh my God, that's naughty.
Yeah.
you know but once we practice makes permanent. So if we start practicing, when we hear that negative self-talk, if I was my own best friend, what would I be telling myself now? How would I be championing myself? How would I be nurturing myself? How would I be
Mm-hmm.
supporting myself? If I really had my head space a dark place, how would I use that tough love to help get myself out of it, so that I can make a decision from the heart of where to from here?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, so what you said was, think about when you have these thoughts and you're going through these certain life eruptions or whatever, you start talking to yourself, or either think, how would I speak with my best friend about that? Now,
Yeah.
when you are surrounded, and I think of the world today, it's a lot of energy. Energy to me is just unbelievable. It is, it's a powerful. You can
Yes,
have
it is.
positive energy or you can have negative energy. And and when you are confronted or surrounded by that, because those are the things too that could have you thinking, stinking thinking,
Right.
well, I don't know, it's just, it's just trying to separate yourself from that. How would one do that? Because it's happening a lot more lately. People like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't know about this. And, many people are not in a good space right now. How
Yeah.
can they get in that space, a better
Well, you've
space?
raised you've raised a really important problem, and I don't know if there's a magic fairy dust solution for it, because the five most important people in your life, the people that you surround yourself with, those are the people you're going to become more like.
Mm,
Full stop. So if you have negative and toxic people around you that are telling you all the things that you can't do, you're
mhm,
going to be flooded with their energy. And it's going
mhm.
to be difficult to let that move through and let that go. I mean, sometimes they're family that you have to distance yourself from because maybe you have a narcissistic parent or someone that's just not supportive. Um, Maybe it's some friends that used to be really good friends, but the more you're around them, the more toxic they become and drag you down, because maybe you're evolving and growing and changing. And people think that that's wrong, but as we change and grow, we want to
Yeah,
surround ourselves with like-minded people who are going
yes.
to uplift and support us the way we're going to support them.
Mhm,
And it's a different situation if you are in a toxic job situation. If there's a way that you can change it by how you act and what you do, and maybe there's a way to move laterally or to a different position within a company, that's a possibility. But it's not a good thing for our mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual health to
right.
be under a toxic boss. So
Mhm,
I don't have a magic solution, but we can make those decisions. And I think we can just gradually move away from those kind of people, but it's really not a good idea, even if they're your family, even if
mhm,
they're your family.
mhm, mhm. Excuse me, Arlene, you've not met Max. Max is the dog. A lot of my listeners have heard him, and sometimes you don't hear from him, but now it's something about your voice that he wants to come in and see who I'm talking with.
That's all
So
right. That's fine. You-
I just wanted to acknowledge that for those new listeners too, and I apologize for that.
That's all right.
Um, yeah, I'm thinking about some things and people who have been in my life, and as you indicated, we're always there for them. That are having a tough time, and then it came a time when I'm like, I can't talk right now. It's kind of like a boundary. And I know you're big on boundaries as well, but there are times when it's not that I don't love them, but it's just not a good time for me to talk. And once I get back into my space and fill my cup, then I will reach out to them. Um, how or is that a boundary one set, or is there any other ways that you could remove yourself from those? Like you indicated, jobs can be tough, family
Yeah.
can be tough. Are there any other ways that you've experienced?
Well, I think, what you're giving, there's 2 points there. Number one, if someone's just coming to you to dump all their negativity in their energy field or to pump up a flat tire, but they're not doing anything to take care of themselves and to move forward, and they're not really interested in that, they're just using you.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a healthy thing. And I
Okay.
don't care if they're family or not. My clear, strong, and appropriate boundaries are I have this golden bubble of protection around me. It's
Mm-hmm.
filled with love. I'm going to fill myself up with love. I can share the overflow of my love with you, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not okay to dump in my field because that drags you. That it's not helping the other person because
Right.
they came in here. They have certain lessons to learn, and if we're taking on their toxic stuff, we're going to be dragged down. They're
Right.
only going to be pumped up for a little bit, and they're not going to be learning the lessons that they need to learn to evolve and to grow. And it's so we need to. I just have really clear, strong, and appropriate boundaries with that. That's not okay.
Okay.
Um, but another thing what we can do to be more ready is what you already touched on is that we need to be every day filling our cup up with love
Mm-hmm.
and sharing that overflow with other people.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, what happens is that we let other people drain our energy. It becomes an empty cup. We become frustrated and angry and overwhelmed, and we might lash out at another person. Then we
Yeah.
feel guilty about it, and then
Yes.
we engage in doormat and that kind of behavior of giving, 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 and we go through that cycle again. When we actually do things to love and nurture ourselves, whatever that is for you, and our cup is filled up with love, we're not going to go through that cycle. We are going to feel better. And the
Mm-hmm.
people that we interact with are going to see a real difference and experience us much more positively as well.
Yes, that's good. I definitely, I'm glad you reiterated all that because I wanted my listeners to hear that, even though you guys have been friends for a while, but if it's draining, you have to kind of let go so that your cup can get full because that's important for your well-being. Now, yeah, you also do that soul reading and group soul readings. Tell me about that. Tell us about
I
that.
Well, I got trained, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago. I always could do like readings for people I've always been really empathic, intuitive, and sensitive, and I tend to attract those kind of people to me. But I'm not a psychic, I'm not like
Hmm.
reading you. But what I can do is I can heart connect with people. And I love working with the cards because, we can be visual, it's auditory, it's kinesthetic, it's a feeling kind of thing. I can help pick out the cards for the person by just being a conduit over computer or the phone, and I share opportunities that are available, obstacles and challenges that could present, and ways that they can move forward. It's very much like one-on-one mentoring, uh,
Mm,
but a lot of people get so much more out of it because we're doing it together. We're both
right.
picking cards, and it's visual, it's auditory, it's recorded. It's something they can work with for maybe 2 or 3 months, and it's a different way to experience mentoring that can be really that can touch people in a way that maybe the other ways can't. So I
Mm,
love doing it. It's really really fun, and I find it helps me with the people that's like you're talking about. They can't seem to get beyond a certain place
mhm,
because they can continue to work with the recording for 2 or 3 months as they ponder where to from here.
mhm. So you use cards. Is that what you said?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, go ahead again. I'm trying to
They're
under.
they're called they're called psychic tarot oracle cards, and
Okay.
basically it's just an easy way to connecting with a person
Mhm.
about what they need and what they're looking for and stuff like that. But it's
Okay.
not but it's not like I'm going to tell you if you're going to get a man or not, or
Right.
what's happening in business. But if they put that energy out there, I want to know about relationships. I want to know about, moving, or I want to know about this job I'm in, or whatever it is. Usually because it's a soul to soul reading, not a personality to personality reading.
Yeah.
somehow the information will come out. It won't be like do this or that, but
Right.
what the energy of the card shares through me will give them that sort of feeling about where to from here, and then it's up to them.
Wow. Interesting. So you do one-on-one and you do group.
Yes, I do. Now, a group is like if I've been invited to a lot of parties, like business
Oh,
parties and celebrations, and sometimes friends are all scared, and two or three will come at once and they'll
right.
listen to each other. Um, I could do a group, but usually what people want is just to know about themselves. But sometimes different friends come together and want to support each other, or a couple want to be together to hear the other person. As long as they're consenting adults or an adult is there with a child, it's fine. I can
Okay.
still do that for them.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now I want to talk about this inner voice. So is it that you, as you indicated, in your mind, as we said, we don't know how many thoughts, but we have them, and then they're negative thoughts. So you, so is it that all of a sudden you're like, I'm not having a good day today? And then the thing, well, why aren't you having a good day? I don't know. I'm just kind of having a blah day, so things like that. How would you coach that
Well,
critical
I
thinking?
well, I think it's really important. Well, of course, I can't change anyone. I can only, hold space for them, ask
Sure.
empowering questions, share reflections and insights, and what I'm noticing about them, or what I'm intuitively feeling, and handing it to them and see what they want to do with it. But one way that we can begin to take that next step forward is to just choose to be aware. Because I
Mhm.
found that when I was in my 20s, I had all these negative stuff going on, and I thought that the way to share with my girlfriends was just to tell all the horrible things that were happening in my life. I
Right.
thought
Right.
that's how we bonded. And
Okay.
and once we become aware of what's going on and how we're talking to ourselves, that helps to de-energize that inner critic, full stop, to begin with. We
Okay.
can begin to work with our inner coach from there.
Okay. All right. So in other words, don't push the feelings down. Don't just be aware of it, because a lot of people don't want to feel that way. So then they get upset because they're feeling that way. You know. Yeah.
Yeah. What I found is I used to do that too, and it can cause all kinds of physical problems. I used to have horrible headaches and digestive issues. It can like make your mind feel really frenetic and stuff like that. And then if I really wasn't listening to my inner coach, which is God or source, whatever you want to talk about,
Right.
I ended up, in my 30s, really feeling like I got whacked by a 2x4 and I was on the floor with what was going on in my life because I wasn't feeling my feelings. And the thing is that
Mhm.
if they're just feelings, and they're just things that are coming up to move through us and to be loved. I look at them as, how old is this part of me inside of me? How old is Arlene here? She 8, she 10, she 12, she 22. And I turn around and I know that I've neglected or abandoned that bit of me, or she's gotten stuck somewhere because something that happened. And
Yeah.
I turn around and I love her. I,
No.
we know how to love. We know how to love kids. We can just turn around and love and hug and say, I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'll
Yeah.
be there now, and help to de-energize and let them know that their feelings are valid. It's a part of us that we have said, you're not okay. It's not okay to have these feelings. And maybe, we were told when we were growing up that it wasn't okay to be really angry or to be really upset. So we've squashed stuff down. But when
Hmm.
we feel it and we let it move through us and then welcome in more love to fill up those spaces, we're going to start to feel different.
Right. And you talked about the being the inner coach can upgrade your experience of life. Is that right?
Yeah. I
Okay.
feel so. I mean, I really, because what we're doing is we're nurturing and supporting ourselves instead of beating ourselves and cutting ourselves down and contracting and being small. We can be much more expanded and more loving if we are focusing on and working with our inner coach, acknowledging when the inner critic is there, and then doing something about it. And it's a process. It's not a perfect,
Hmm.
and that's what I was saying. I'm a work in progress, and I'm grateful to be here.
Yeah, I get that. So am I. So I guess what you're saying, all of that can help individuals with anxiety that they have, overwhelm, burnout. Um, while building the confidence and self-esteem to embrace the positive changes. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We talk, I hear a lot about every day I hear about gratitude and how gratitude affects our ability to coach and nurture ourselves. Um, let's talk a little bit about gratitude. So if I don't know whether in the morning, um, Arlene, like how does your day start? Is that important for the rest of your day, you think? Do you
Absolutely.
start out like, okay, I'm gonna turn on the news? Like how does your day start? What do you do?
No, I don't understand why people turn on the TV when they first get up, because there's so much toxicity out there.
Yeah.
No, I'll do some meditation. I'll do some like protection and clearing of my energy field. Um, I might watch something that's inspiring or uplifting. I might work with affirmations, but I really feel like, how we start our day is very important. And we can start our day so easy with gratitude. It's like, oh man, I love this bed I'm in. I don't know if I want to get up, but this is such a comfortable bed. And we take a hot shower maybe in the morning, and we just really take the time to appreciate it and enjoy it. Maybe whatever we eat for breakfast, we really just love it. Because when we
Right.
put love into our food, it's going to nurture our bodies so much more.
Right.
So I would never, ever turn on the news when I first get up. I just find that would be
Okay.
really abrasive. And I really feel it's a wonderful way to start our day. Even if we only have 5 minutes of self-care, whatever it is, it's going to make a difference. Even if we're just saying affirmations to ourselves and doing our best to feel them as we're loving our food and making our breakfast and taking care of our
Hmm.
kids.
Hmm.
We need to give to ourselves what we give to other people.
Right, right. You know, this to me is, and I learned this. I grew up like this, but I'm finding now that I'm more mature, how helpful it is when I get up and make my bed. It's something about me getting up, make my, doing my other things, my meditation, my devotions, but it's like when I make my bed, it's kind of like, oh, I accomplished one thing. It's neat in here. It's some order. Do
Yeah.
you find something like what do you think about that? That's the first
I
thing.
I love making my bed. We have a
Uh-huh.
we have a, we have an affinity there because once I make it, and I'm looking over. I'm in anyway. It's right there, and I can see it, and it's like wow, that just looks so nice with the pillows there, and it feels all
Yeah,
organized.
yeah.
And years ago, I studied feng shui, and there is something to really say about if you have a lot of clutter and stuff around you, how it just brings everything down. But when you sort
Yes.
of organize it, it's sort of neat. It doesn't have to be perfect, not extra
Right.
perfect. It does feel so much better. So little things like that make a huge difference, I feel.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not alone in this. I'm like, oh, I just feel so
No.
good when I do
Yeah.
that, and I know people that just when they go to bed, it's like it was when they were in the bed. I'm like, how can they do that? But that's just me. So I'm glad I'm not alone. What I'd like for us to do now is you gave a lot of. I'd like us to reiterate what some of the strategies that my listeners can use to cultivate mindfulness and resilience, enabling them to transcend self imposed barriers and lead to a more balanced and fulfilling life. Let's just kind of go over some of those
I'd like
strategies.
to give some simple tools
Okay.
because one of the things that I use, if I say something, then I go, whoa, that's not positive, that's not uplifting. I always say, or I make a mistake. Because mistakes, we can reframe mistakes to be opportunities to learn and grow. My
Uh-huh.
mistakes are opportunities and not an opportunity to beat ourselves up. So if I
Okay.
say something that's not positive or I make a mistake, I always affirm to myself, that's not like me. That's not who I am. It's something I did, it's something I said,
Yes.
and I'll do better next time. If I
Mm.
do something that's positive, uplifting, or I'm talking to myself positively, or even sharing that love positively with myself or others, I'll tell myself that's more like me. I'll have more of that.
I like.
So it's a really simple way to talk to ourselves, to affirm as we're working through this, because it takes practice. That's turning the
Mhm.
ship around that's gone, been going into that negative ocean, into that positive ocean. And so it's
Mm.
going to take that practice. Like if we were an athlete and we wanted to run a half marathon or something, we
Right.
can't just go out and do it. So
Exactly.
we just really have to give the time to notice that and to acknowledge it in ourselves that we're building that new firm foundation of positivity and inner coach within ourselves. And all those little steps forward are important to acknowledge them every day.
Hmm. Hmm. That's good because I'm thinking about, you made me think about social media. And I did a little a post the other day or story to say, hey guys, I have an addiction. Have you all ever had an addiction? It's not fun. It's real. And mine is social media. And I scroll through it and I scroll through it and I scroll through it and half an hour's gone. Then I scroll through it. So I like that. So what I said I was going to do was fast from it. I'm not going to even look at social media, right? But then I'm thinking, based on what you said, is as I start, and I'm going to remember that I said I have an addiction. I'll say, that's not me. I'm not addicted. I'm not addicted to anything like that. And this is not a good use of my time. So because of that, if I keep saying that, I don't want to do stuff that's not a good use of my time. I want to do something for my well-being. And
Yeah,
for me to keep repeating that to myself, like, this isn't good. I'm not, this isn't me. This is not how I like to roll during the day. I like to be more
right.
productive because I'm here for a reason and life is short and my life is not evolved on checking social media.
Now, can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Because it's really important not to say that I'm not addicted, because then we're because the word addicted is still in there.
Okay.
So we really have to focus. That's not like me.
Okay.
I'm a person that loves animals and the outdoors, or
Okay.
I love being with people. So you want to affirm to yourself the kind of person that you are, and not what
Okay.
you're not addicted, because that just brings the addiction back in, kind of
Right.
energetically. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's kind of like I'm an alcoholic. And I'm like, no, you're not. Once you're alcoholic, you're always alcoholic. And that quote used to bother me. Like, no, if you keep saying you're an alcoholic, so when you said that, it made me think of that. Like, mm, even though you're aware that one time you were, but that's what I hear from people that go to AA and all of that. They said, I'm an alcoholic. I'm like, no, you're not. So it's kind of like I'm addicted. No, no, I'm not. I'm not like that. So perhaps that could be used for something like that as well.
Well, I'm not going to I'm not going to tackle the whole industry
Sure.
that's helping alcoholics stay sober. But I just felt that, at least at the beginning point for the viewers here, we can start with that. I
Right.
might get a lot of people upset with me, but you do make a very, very valid point.
Hmm.
I guess from where they're coming from, what they're doing is they're acknowledging that you can't drink anything.
Hmm.
Um, However, and a lot of people do it other ways. Whatever floats your boat is,
Right.
But from my perspective, we want to focus on, that's not like me. I'll do better next time. And then, the better next time, we can even visualize and feel, what would next time look like? Next time might be me, having a cup of tea and a biscuit with my friends, or, taking my dog for a walk, or, walking around and breathing the fresh air, or going to get a massage. I don't know, whatever, kind of lights you up. That can be what we visualize and see ourselves doing, and that can
Mhm.
be more what we're grounding in for ourselves in our life.
Okay. I like that. And listeners, I don't know where that came from. I don't know where addiction came from. I don't know where alcohol came from. That wasn't in my purview, but was interesting. Somebody needed to hear it. And that's the
Right,
way I look at things, that somebody out there needs to hear this and perhaps change the narrative, you know?
right.
So that could
Yeah.
be a way of empowering your inner voice from a critic to a coach. So, Arlene, how can my listeners get in touch with you?
Well, my business is Jewel Consultancy, like the diamond. And so jewelconsultancy.com is out there. You can Google Arlene Cohen Miller. I think I'm the only Arlene Cohen Miller. There's lots of Arlene Millers,
Yeah.
which is part of the reason I keep the three names. Of course, the middle name is my son's last name, so I
Oh,
did that for him as well. So you can Google me, or you can also, I want to make an offer to your everyone that comes to your podcast. So if you text me at 720-936-2634, mention Cassandra and her beautiful podcast, I will gift you with like a 5 or 10 minute mini soul reading. So it'll just be a couple cards. We can do it on the computer. And that'll be my little gift to you if you're interested in something like that.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Arlene. I appreciate that. And our listeners do as well. Well, it's about time for us to wrap up. And I will tell my listeners, I know that this particular segment of this podcast has been a blessing. And I'd love for you to share it with individuals where you know that it will be in their best interest. How about empowering your inner voice? Think about that, from being a critic to being a coach. And we have Arlene Cohen Miller to thank for that. And we thank you so much. And I will repeat this again to my listeners. All you have to do is text 720-936-2634, and she will do what we call a soul reading with you.
A mini one.
A mini one. So don't think you're going to take all her time.
And you mentioned Cassandra in this podcast, so I know who you are.
Mention Cassandra. Okay. Well, Arlene, again, thank you for your time. Thank you for your wisdom.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you've been enjoying our empowering conversations, make sure you don't miss out on future episodes of Is Your Way in Your Way podcast. Stay in the loop with all the latest episodes. Join our mailing list over at CassandraCrawley.com. And before you go, hit that like button, share with your friends, and subscribe now. Until next time, let's get ready to live your best life.